Today we're talking about books that I gave 5 stars. These books I have read over a span of maybe like 2 to 3 years, so I don't fully remember them all, but my Goodreads said I gave them 5 stars and I remember enjoying them. So it might not be the most comprehensive roundup of what the book is about, but I gave it 5 stars, so you should try it. The first one is a memoir. This is The Glass Castle by Jeanette Walls. This is a beautiful book. I'll just read you the back because I'm not very good at summarising. The Glass Castle is a remarkable memoir of resilience and redemption, a revelatory look into a family at once deeply dysfunctional and uniquely vibrant. It's about her life. She didn't have a great childhood, she didn't have a great family situation, and it's just about her life. I love books like this. Partner book to this, absolutely not related, but Educated by Tara Westover is a very similar book, and I also gave that 5 stars. I don't have my copy of Educated because I lent it to someone and never saw it again. Both very similar books. I just eat up a memoir that is about someone's childhood. I love it. I think I'm always so impressed by how much they can remember and how much they can document in such detail. I would highly recommend this one. The next two are both by the same author, so I've put them together, but I gave both 5 stars. It's Claire Keegan's Small Things Like These and Foster. Both very, very short books. I'm always very impressed by her ability to write such an amazing story in such a short amount of pages. I don't know how she does it. It never feels fast-paced. It never feels like she's skipping things, or it just doesn't feel, it feels like a long book in 100 pages. It's a true gift. I don't know how she does it. This one is about the Irish Magdalene. Yes, so this is about the Irish Magdalene laundries. Something I didn't know much about, and it's a very harrowing little story, but beautifully written, and it's just amazing. I haven't seen the film. There's a new film out about it and I haven't seen it, but I would like to. This one is about a little girl who goes to stay with family over the summer. I think because her parents can't look after the amount of children they have from memory. I read these a couple of years ago. Again, beautiful story. I would highly recommend Keegan's work. I would like to read some of her other things. I do have one of her other books. Can't remember which one it is. But she has quite a few books, so definitely recommend. Next is something that I don't really read. I used to read a lot of fantasy when I was in my mid to late teens. Not so much something that I touch now. Not really for any reason. I just never find myself drawn to it. But someone I watch on here called Sunbeams Jess, she reads a lot of fantasy and speculative fiction, and she really recommends Robin Hobb, and this whole series I gave 5 stars. This is the second book because the first one's in this pile somewhere and it was too much of a Jenga to get it out. This one's Royal Assassin, but the series is called the Farseer trilogy. It's 3 books. Quite lengthy, but fantastic. The writing is amazing. It's so warm. It feels like a hug, these books. She has an ability to make a fantasy story seem not fantastical. The base of the story is the relationships and the people. It's not really the system, although the magic system is there. It's not super prominent, which I think is why I enjoyed it as a fantasy series, because it wasn't so fantastical that it took away from the writing and the storytelling. So I would highly recommend these. Even if you aren't a fantasy gal, you might like this series. Quite the switch up from that is The Enchanted April by Elizabeth von Armin. This is quite an old book. This was published 1922. Just a small one. I read this last spring because I like to read with the seasons, and it's about 4 women who stay in a castle manor on the Italian coast and all the things that entail. It's a wonderful book. It feels like spring. It feels like this book sucks you, transports you to the Italian coast. It is a marvellous book. If you're going to Italy, I would highly recommend taking this as your book for the trip. Loved this. 5 stars. Then we have a non-fiction. I think this might be, yes it is, the only non-fiction in this pile. This is Maybe You Should Talk to Someone by Laurie Gottlieb. I read this last summer. It was a wonderful, wonderful book. Oh, my battery's flashing. God damn. I apologise if the angle has changed. Anyway, I loved this book. This is a therapist who goes to therapy, and she writes about her clients and she writes about her experience in therapy, and it's just a really wonderful book. Whether you go to therapy or not, this is a really enjoyable book. Unfortunately, I left it on my windowsill, so now it's sun bleached, but yeah, fantastic book. I've gobbled this up in like 3 days, so definitely recommend. This one is a really recent read. I read this at the start of this year, Flowers for Algernon by Daniel Keyes. I've wanted to read this for a while. I picked it up because I was travelling and it's very small pocket size, and it was the cheapest one in the Japanese bookstore. Wonderful book, a wonderful book. It's about a boy who is mentally impaired, and he basically goes through a surgery to make him more intelligent at the same time as a mouse has this surgery. And it's just about his experience and his documentation of that. It's a very subtle sci-fi. The themes are scientific, but it's really not heavily science-based. It works because it's like it could really happen. It's a very realistic book, but it is a little bit sci-fi because I don't think they can do that yet. I highly recommend this one. These two I spoke about in other videos, so I'll just be quite brief. This one is John Williams by Stoner. I did a whole video on how much I love this book, so no surprise I gave it 5 stars. A wonderful book. This one I also read this year, very short. I read this in one sitting. I would like to read more of John Fosse's work. This was a really wonderful one as well, but I already spoke about this, so I won't go into too much detail. Seabiscuit. This one I'd been looking for in loads of bookshops, loads of secondhand bookshops in Chiang Mai. I finally found it, so that was already a success and achievement. I was going to like it because I found it. I have no attachment to horses. I have no attachment to horse racing, but for some reason I gave this book 5 stars. It's about a racehorse in the 1940s. Who basically defies all odds. He's too old and he's injured and he shouldn't have won what he won, and it's just about his life and his story and the races that he won. It's a really, really wonderful book, and I gave this 5 stars. Would highly recommend. I lied, this is non-fiction too, so there's 2 non-fictions in here. Poor Things by Alistair Gray. I loved this. This is like nothing else you've ever read. In the book there's actually drawings and just things you don't normally get in fiction novels. I read this after I watched the film. I don't know if I would recommend doing it that way around. I normally don't, but I had to read the book after I saw the film, and I gave this 5 stars as well as giving the film 5 stars. I would like to read more of his things. I think all of his books are a little weird. I loved this. I would highly recommend giving this a go as well. I've got 2 classics that seem to be the only classics in this pile, I think. I've got Jane Eyre and I've got East of Eden by John Steinbeck. I don't know why I didn't say who wrote Jane Eyre. Charlotte Bronte. This is a Penguin cloth-bound edition. She's a little faded now. I read this for my English literature course, so I read it over quite some time and I analysed it, so I really went through it. I loved this book. I hated the ending. I don't understand the ending. I don't know. I mean, if you haven't read it, I don't want to spoil it, but it's a classic. I'm allowed to say what the ending is. She basically spends the whole book being this headstrong, feminist, independent character, which is not something that's expected of women in the time that this was written. And then at the end of the book, she just gets married off to the man, which is what was expected of female characters and of authors to write at that time, but it just doesn't make sense for the rest of the book. He's just not in line with the character development that goes on from start to finish. So I gave this 5 stars, but I hated the end. And this is one of my favourite books of all time, East of Eden by John Steinbeck. It's quite lengthy, like 700 pages. This copy I love. I do have some of the other copies that are in this particular publisher series. Steinbeck's writing is one of my favourites. If you don't like flowery descriptive writing, you will hate this, and probably all of his work, but I love it. So yeah, this is one of my favourites. The storytelling, the relationship between the 2 brothers, all of his books are set in the same place, so it's a very very Steinbeck trademark, I'm going to say. Samuel Hamilton is one of my favourite characters that I've ever read about. He is just the cutest, sweetest man, and I loved him. So I would highly recommend this if you like Steinbeck's other work, or if you like descriptive writing. So that's all the books that I have given 5 stars. I don't give out 5 stars very generously. I've read nearly 100 books, and this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 of them I've given 5 stars. So I really don't give them out that often. So if it's got 5 stars, it's a good bloody book. So enjoy. Bye.